accidentally went to my haircut today, and which is why.
Did you not get a text notification about it, Brett?
So I did get a text notification about it, but it did not have a day of the week listed. It just had a date,
Oh.
and but I will take full accountability. It's obviously my fault. It like 100%. I have to acknowledge that it is my fault for going to my haircut on the wrong day. But then it is why my hair is still the same as the last episode. So,
I think it looks fantastic, Brett.
well, thank you. I mean, I just want to get a trim, but it's so for continuity with the last episode, that's the silver lining. I still have the same hair this episode, but the next episode might be a little shorter. So yeah.
You're gonna be all glammed and pampered up for next
Yes,
episode.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're gonna have by the third episode, we're gonna have glow ups. That's how fast we're building this empire.
Do you ever think, Brett, that we'll get to a point where I have like a makeup artist before we get on the show? I need to be like pampered before the episode.
Exactly. Yeah, powder our nose and all
Yeah.
that. I'll be like Elisa Barlow. Elisa Barlow. So okay, bringing the flaming stars out of this Lisa Barlow, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She
Mhm.
always has her glam with her, no matter where she
Mhm.
goes, whether
Mhm.
they're in Greece, whether they're in Palm Springs. Always needs the glam. So yeah,
Yeah,
that'll
well,
be us.
I just hope one day we get big enough. Wouldn't that be awesome?
We'll get there. We'll get there. So, what we want to talk about today, we want to talk about astrophotography in a kind of like an astrophotography 101. We definitely don't want to make this like a lesson plan. This is not a course in
Yeah,
astrophotography, but
definitely not, Brett, because
yeah,
school was just not my forte. I mean,
we're not going to
it,
not
yeah,
going to bring it back to that. Yep.
not my forte at all.
We're going to keep this just as a conversation. We just want to talk about, I think it would be good to talk about the basics of astrophotography, kind of like go through step by step, like some of the main, like kind of anchor points of like what goes into astrophotography. But yeah, I thought it'd be fun for us to talk about our workflows, our processes, how we've improved, what we've changed over the years. Because yeah, last episode we got into like how and why we got into the hobby. So this episode, I think it would be good for us to just have a conversation about what our astrophotography looks like what it looks like for us to plan our sessions, get ready for our sessions, do the imaging process, all of that.
And I would hope that nobody would be surprised that our episode today would be about astrophotography. If you're joining us for our second episode and you don't know that we are an astrophotography podcast, surprise, we are an astrophotography podcast.
Exactly. That is a good point to bring up because obviously people listening a lot are from Instagram, a lot of astrophotographers from Instagram. So thank you everyone who tuned in to the first episode. I know, yeah, we've loved the reception that we've gotten.
I was just blown away by the reception that we had on the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you
Agreed.
everyone who watched. Thank you for everyone who subscribed to our YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. There are a lot of people who gave us positive feedback. Had a few people give us some good feedback too on some
Mm-hmm.
things to change. My dad was one of them. So and he knows nothing about
Uh-huh.
astrophotography, but he still was down to give me some feedback
Okay.
on the
Well,
episode.
that's good. That's fun.
Yeah. So no,
Some
I
self-love,
truly
maybe.
appreciate it. We appreciate everybody. So thank you.
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, we've definitely appreciated all the like some suggestions and people that want to come on as guests and all of that. Like we've been telling people, but just we are working on a process to, formally have guests
Yeah.
on the podcast.
That's another thing, Brett, that really blew me away was everyone who wants to come on the show and talk to us. So,
Exactly. Yeah, same.
and I love to talk. So you're not scaring me. You can come on the show and talk to me. You're not scaring me.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah, and yeah, we want to talk to other astrophotographers because we like first of all, it's amazing. We're all over the country, all over the world. I think it would be so great to get so many different perspectives. And I think it's fun because also we are not, you know, PhDs in astrophysics. We are not
Yeah.
like we're just hobbyist astrophotographers just like
Yeah.
everyone else.
Yeah, I do government and community affairs for a living,
Yeah,
for a
exactly.
nonprofit. I have that has nothing to do with outer space or astronomy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I'm in the architecture industry, so
Yeah.
nothing to do with space. This is just, what we are passionate about and having so much fun talking about and having so much fun just, talking with people and meeting people. Yeah, that's what the point of this
And
is.
you know, Brett, you were saying about people reaching out to us. I mean, we had people from Australia reach out to us. We had people from
Mhm.
Germany, from Canada, from the United States, all over the world, people reaching out to us. And I think and I talked about this in the first episode, and this is just something that really brings people together. You
Yeah,
know, there's no borders, there's no anything other than the love for looking up at outer space and capturing the beauty that is hidden by the light pollution. So,
exactly.
I think the response we got from the first episode literally from around the world just proved our point from the first episode of how this really brings people together.
Exactly. And we want to continue doing that. And so thank you to everyone that has reached out to us because we appreciate it so much. But yeah, okay, so I guess now we can get into the main discussion of this episode, which is astrophotography.
Well, I think one thing, Brett, I know we're getting into astrophotography. I
Yeah.
think one thing that is very um, important with astrophotography is weather. And
Yes.
anyone who has been in the central United States to East Coast this year knows how brutal of a winter it's been on this half of the United States. I can't speak for some of our viewers from Europe and Australia. Of course, it's summertime in Australia right now, but and South America, but the winter has been brutal in
It has.
regards to the cloud cover, in regards to the amount of snow we've been getting, in regards to the freezing temperatures. I said earlier in the show here, right just now, I said it's -10, -15 wind chills today. Now
Hmm.
I'm dedicated to the hobby, but you will not find me outside in -15 wind chills to do this hobby. I'm
Exactly.
not going to.
But I agree. I am lucky that I can put my stuff out on my roof and then go
Mhm.
inside really quick to warm up and then go back out and then come back inside. So yes, it is brutal how cold it has been lately. And yes, the cloud cover has been insane. I mean, actually, as of recently, I've had a few clear nights, which I've been happy about. But yeah, in the
Lucky
last
you.
month, it's just been pretty much constant cloud cover. Yeah,
Constant. And I think, a lot of us use astropheric. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. Is there an S in there? I'm not quite sure.
there is an
Astropheric.
Astro. Hold on,
Spheric.
because it is a bookmark of mine. It is Astro Spheric.
Spheric. Okay.
Yeah, there is an S.
Anyways, as being somebody, one of my other hobbies is meteorology, it's weather. And
Mhm,
the more I've talked to people in this hobby, the more I've seen that as a trend of people who are interested in astrophotography also happen to be interested in meteorology as well.
mhm.
Yeah. And the models that uses to indicate cloud cover is usually pretty good in the short term of up to 48 hours. But even in this winter, it hasn't been the most accurate every night. It really hasn't. And I think it's been having a hard time. The models have been having a hard time dictating the weather pattern that we're having right now.
Well, yeah, because there have been so many nights when I've either thought that I was gonna be setting up or I even did set up thinking that it was gonna be clear, and then all of a sudden the clouds rolled in.
One of my local meteorologists just did share on social media that one of the reasons why models are having such a hard time predicting um, precipitation
Yes.
and cloud cover and weather in general is because there is less and less weather balloons being released into the atmosphere right now.
Hmm,
And we're not collecting the right amount of data that's needed to feed the computer models for them to be accurately able to predict the forecast. That was
interesting.
something that my local meteorologist shared on her Facebook, and I had no idea. And I'm not quite sure why that's taking place, but yeah, there's less weather balloons going up right now.
Yeah, I'm very curious, like, what the reasoning behind that would be.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
actually, if any
Mhm.
listeners know, comment.
Yeah,
please.
please. Yeah, let us
Yeah.
know because I didn't
Yeah,
really do
let
any
us know.
research into it either.
Yeah, yeah. But so yeah, as you were saying, Astrospheric is the main app that both of us use to look at cloud cover. And there are three different categories of it. There's cloud cover, which are the actual, clouds in the sky. And then there's transparency and seeing. And so transparency is, I think, higher clouds in the sky, like higher, thinner clouds. And then seeing, I think, mainly has to do with atmospheric turbulence. And that's another thing about this episode. We're going to be saying things as we know and understand them. But anyone correct us if we are.
Yeah, I think that's important to note since we just mentioned a little bit ago that we do not have PhDs in any of this,
Yes,
that some of this might be non-scientific words. Like,
exactly.
for example, I sometimes will shoot through swirly clouds,
Mhm.
which are cirrus clouds, but yeah, a lot of people would know them as the clouds that look swirly high up in the atmosphere.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Um, we just want to talk through this as just layman's terms. Everything is just like how we as hobbyists understand things, how we talk about things, all of that. But yes, transparency and seeing transparency also is a little worse. Like if that's bad, you're not going to get a crisp image. Seeing is the one that has to do with atmospheric turbulence. And you can image through bad seeing, like I did last night, actually. If you compare two images with good seeing and bad seeing, you'll see the difference. But for the most part, like, yeah, if seeing's bad, you can still take advantage of imaging for the night. Then we were also talking about clouds in the sense that, like, you refer to like the swirly clouds.
Yes, that's the very scientific term for them.
Exactly. Yeah. I do have fun taking time lapses of my gear. And yes, clouds obviously are annoying as they come in because they'll block your subframes and, it's not good for your imaging. But there have been times when there have been some really cool clouds. I don't even know how to describe them other than just swirly, swoopy clouds. But I think it's like over the summer at one point, I took a time lapse where it actually, the cloud forecast was no clouds. But then I think there was some sort of lake effect because I live like a mile away from Lake Michigan. And so I think there was some sort of lake effect that was just like making these clouds appear, but it was crazy because they were like appearing and disappearing at the same time. So the time lapse for it looked really cool.
A lot of that has to do with temperature differences,
Yeah.
especially
Mhm.
when the clouds have like waves to them, like this. Like they almost look like the waves of an ocean or like a lake going up and down. Usually that means that there is warm air rushing in. So
Okay.
if
Well,
you're about to have a snowstorm and you see the clouds starting to get wavy, your snow's most likely going to start changing over to sleet or rain because that means warm air is
mm,
interjecting into the atmosphere, into that level of about 5 to 10,000 feet. I really wanted to be a meteorologist for a living.
I know. I know. Yeah, and you just explained that much better than the way that I explained cloud cover. So now let's kind of transition just into like sky conditions. With that, I guess, how about we talk about light pollution first? Actually, just the Bortle scale.
Okay.
Because we haven't really, yeah, gone into that. So I guess the Bortle scale, as any of our astrophotographer listeners know, is a scale that basically determines how dark your sky is, so how well you can see the night sky. And it's the Bortle scale on a scale from 1 to 9. In a city like where I am, right in the heart of Chicago, I'm Bortle 9, so as light polluted as you can get. And then, yeah, Nick, you're a little lower than that.
Yeah, I'm like, it depends on what scale you look at. Some places have me in the sixes, some scales have me in the sevens.
Yep.
So I'm in that range between, I would say, 6.5 and 7.5. But you go about 45 minutes northwest of me or to the west of me, you can be in Bortle 4 or 5 skies. Like where my parents live, where I grew up, it's in the Bortle 4, I believe. So, and they're about an hour away from me. So you can drop off pretty rapidly the further away from Philadelphia you go.
And there are a lot of like light pollution websites that you can look at.
Yeah, there's a couple
I've
different ones. And
Yeah,
I know there's two that I've used, and both of them have me in different Bortles. And they're not that far off, but um, I think the one, like I said, is like 6.8, and the other one's like 7.3, something like that.
Yeah, for mine, whenever I look at Chicago, it is, just a just a giant blob of Bortle 9,
Yeah,
and then
just
it gets
bright white on the
yeah,
map. It's just
it
bright
is,
white.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bright white Bortle 9, and then as you get out to the suburbs, yeah, you go down to I think, like, an hour out, you can get down to, like, 5 or 6 maybe, but yeah, it's tough in a city, but hey, that is what we are also trying to showcase with our astrophotography, is what we can see in the night sky, even through heavy light pollution. Um
And I said this to you the other day, Brett, that how ironic it is that before we were doing this hobby, I didn't give a rip about light pollution.
Mhm.
I never was, like, concerned if it was gonna be cloudy at nighttime or not.
Yep.
Like, it wasn't even a thought that would come into my mind. The only reason I would care if it was gonna be clear at night during the winter is that would indicate how cold it was gonna get because cloud cover helps insulate the surface so it doesn't get as cold when there's cloud cover. So that's I
Interesting.
would care about. Before this hobby, these were things that, didn't really even phase us.
Yeah.
And I know that's
Well,
probably the same for everyone who's listening to this too.
exactly. And then also you getting into this hobby coincided with you also getting solar panels.
It did, yes.
So you really care
Yes.
about cloud cover now.
Yes, I really yeah, that's actually a really valid point. I really do care about cloud cover now,
Mhm.
especially now at day and night. I
Yep.
care about cloud cover, and
Mhm.
I will say I'm having a little bit of a mental breakdown because my solar panels have been covered by snow now for a week and a half, and they've
Yeah.
been producing no electric. So, they've been pretty useless up on my roof. I wanna see if I can invest in some, like, heated tape or something to heat them up to get rid of the
Y
snow because
yeah,
I'm missing out on some really clear days of missing out on electric production. So,
exactly.
my electric company is probably very happy right now, and I am not.
True. Yeah. Yeah, 'cause you want those electricity credits. Yep.
Yeah, I want the electricity credits, 1. 2, I don't want a bill.
Yeah, exactly.
And 3, I want to do my part in helping reduce global emissions, helping to sell clean energy onto the electric grid.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the things we wanna talk about too is the different types of astrophotography.
Yes. Yep.
When last episode we were talking about different ways that we got involved in astrophotography.
Mhm.
I originally got involved with astrophotography with the moon and the planets.
Yep.
So my first telescope was the 130, Celestron 130, and then I got the 8SE, which was great for moon imaging. It was great for Jupiter. Oh my gosh, some of
Mhm.
my best shots were of Jupiter, and it was all with the SE, and that's really how I got started, was doing local astronomy, astrophotography like that and with the moon and the planets. Then
Yep.
I really got into deep space astrophotography when we're talking about imaging other galaxies like the Andromeda galaxy that I imaged, when we're talking about nebula, like I just posted a few weeks ago, the Orion Nebula, which
Mhm.
me and Brett have a lot of history with the Orion Nebula. So, and like as a friendship wise, we have a lot
Yep.
of history, Brett, with that. So, you know, there's a lot of different types of astrophotography. And one thing that I'm really want to do is I really want to bust out the 8SE again. And I really want to get back to my roots. And I really want to take some photos of Jupiter again because it's just such a beautiful planet. It really is. So I think it's important for me, at least, that I kind of want to stay true to how I got started with this hobby. And I think I am in the next few weeks. Maybe I'll do some planetary astrophotography again.
That's also that's the cool thing about this hobby, is that because there are so many different types of or different categories of astrophotography, you can, go back and forth you can
Yeah.
try all sorts of them. You can go really, really deep into one, but then switch it up and go to another. And so, yeah, as you're saying, like going back to your roots, I think that in planetary and lunar photography, that actually would be that's part of what's great about this hobby. You can always there's so much variety. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
Um,
if I remember correctly, well, I'm remembering correctly,
yeah.
your first exposure to astrophotography was actually the Milky Way and
Hmm.
photographing the Milky Way for the first time. So, I think it's important that we're breaking this down into different segments of astrophotography. You have lunar astrophotography, you have planetary astrophotography, you have deep space.
So then there's also, yeah, there's solar
Yes.
astrophotography as well. That does require a solar is one that I did get a filter for my 130, and I did take a picture of the sun once
Hmm.
with my 130, but then the Sea Star also comes with a solar filter. So I've done that. The thing with
I've been
solar,
too nervous.
it 100% agree.
I've been too nervous.
It is because, yeah, don't look at the sun. It's not, honestly, because of how nervous I get, it's really like not for me.
Yeah.
So I prefer at night doing deep sky
Yeah.
after photography. But yeah, and actually I guess what I will say too is star trails. So that's another
Hmm.
one that is popular, and I guess I had said this in the last episode that star trails are, at least for me in a city, it was such a good way to get started with astrophotography because it's a great way to reveal all the stars, because when they're just pinpoints in the sky, even if you take a long exposure photo just like on your cell phone, you won't really see that many. But when I got a GoPro and actually started doing star trails, that's when you see the streaks of light across the night sky.
Hmm.
So that actually is, yeah, if you're in a city and you just want to like get some, pretty compelling images just of stars going across the night sky, star trails definitely a good one to get into, because it helps you understand the way that the earth rotates as well, because like
Yeah, I
it
was just about to say that, Brett. It really
yeah.
puts into perspective of how the Earth rotates and how, different parts of the sky are moving by us at different parts of the
Hmm.
night.
Yep.
So, and I talked about that in the first episode where how everything is flying by in the night sky. Um, so yeah,
Exactly. Yep.
it's a fun astrophotography too.
Exactly. Which then, okay, so now we've talked about the different types of astrophotography, all of which we've both like dipped our toes in like most of them. But yeah, so now we're both pretty well entrenched in deep sky astrophotography. But I am excited for you, yeah, to go back to planetary stuff, because especially with your new some of your new tools and your skill sets, your techniques, I think you're going to get some amazing shots in the near future.
And I think that actually goes back to our next thing that we're going to talk about, which is planning. Planning everything.
Yes.
Because I want to make sure that I'm going out and I'm viewing the planets. If I'm going to do planets when they're really at opposition, because that's when they're closest to us.
Hmm.
So Jupiter's opposition just passed actually in January, so it's still pretty close to the planet. And I believe Saturn is usually in the fall. So I think in the next few weeks I'm going to try to get Jupiter, and then in the fall I'm going to try to get, I think it's early fall, late early fall. I want to try to get Saturn again. So, when we're talking about planning, and as somebody who's pretty new to this hobby, it's been really great for me to open up my feed on my Instagram and seeing what everybody's posting, because that gives me a good indication of what I should be looking at based on that
Yep.
time of the year.
Exactly.
For example, like right now, or it's kind of
Mhm.
ending a little bit, is Orion's time of year. A couple months prior, it was Pleiades. So it was the time of the year really matters. And one thing I really never thought of before either, before this hobby, was the moon phases and how much of an
Yeah.
impact whether there's a full moon or a new moon really makes. And people will be like, "Oh, Nick, yeah, you going out tonight? There's a full moon." And I have to explain to people, actually, I'm not happy there's a full moon
Uh-huh.
because
Yep.
it's going to mess up my imaging tonight.
Exactly.
And, it's just like making that connect with people of understanding the moon phases, understanding where the moon's going to be in the sky too. That's very important, of where the
Mhm.
moon's positioning is in the sky as well. And at what time it's going to be at different degrees across the sky.
Yeah. Well, and a few things to that as well. As we were saying, how there are so many different types of astrophotography, and it's good to have that variety that you go into, because during a full moon or near a full moon, deep sky astrophotography obviously might not be as good. Your targets can be washed out, but then, hey, go ahead and take photos of the moon if you want. So it's like
Yeah.
if you want to maximize your time with taking different types of photos, get into lunar, get into deep sky, so that
Mhm.
depending on, the moon phase, you can go for whatever's most advantageous.
And you're not wasting a clear night
Exactly, yeah.
because especially this winter, they've been so far and few between. So you don't
Exactly.
wanna waste a clear night.
Yeah. And with what you said, where the moon is also makes an impact. And then also the filters that you use, especially if you're doing narrowband imaging, which for the most part is what I do. I have found as long as, even, I mean, it's still not ideal with a full moon, but as long as the moon is like 60 degrees away from your target, I would say if you're shooting a target with a narrowband filter, you'll still get you'll still get the image. It might not be the highest quality data in your full data set, but it's still worth imaging. So yeah, even if the moon is a full moon, pay attention to where it is and what type of target you're imaging, and where that target is, and maybe you can still have an imaging night on a full moon night.
Yeah, you were talking about the narrowband filters, and a really
Mhm.
important part of all this, of course, is the gear. And
Yes.
yeah, and as I've had a very hard time with you brought up, Brett, the narrowband filters. I
Uh-huh.
cannot figure out how to get a narrowband filter inside my setup. And I'm really excited for you to visit me here in Pennsylvania. So maybe you can help me figure it out because I am not able to get the right connectors for my narrowband filter. And that will be a game changer for me when I
It
can get
will.
narrowband filter working. And in fact, you know, I guess in a way it might be kind of cool that my narrowband filter wasn't inserted this year because then next year when I go to Orion again, it's going to make it pop even more and it will show even more progress than what I
Yes.
got this year with the
Yep.
narrowband filter. So I'm really hoping when you do visit me, Brett, that you can help me with that.
Yes, I definitely will, and because we definitely wanna get that set up for you going into the summer, because that's when it's
Yes.
gonna be, like, all the great nebulas. Like, even
Yeah.
yeah, your North America nebula is gonna be
Yeah.
spectacular this year once you
Yes,
get
and I
that.
need to make some improvements on that. The one you know, I remember when I first got that, I was so excited on my
Oh, yeah.
sidewalk, but yeah. But no, I think the narrowband filter will help so much, and I just need to figure out how to insert it into my rig. We can find the correct sequence
We
that works.
Yeah, we will find the one that works, and I feel bad every time you're asking me questions about it because my telescope just came with the connectors that just automatically worked with a 2-inch filter that screws in, so I'm just like, "I don't know why it's not working for you."
Well, and I
So
think that kind of talks about gear.
yeah, so we want in talking about gear, we do want to simplify it for people and showcase how we got our particular gear over time. If you look at someone's advanced setup, it looks very overwhelming, but all of it is built up over time and then also has 3 main components, which we've, discussed before. So you have your camera, your optics, and your mount. And so those are the 3 main things that are the mix and match pieces of your astrophotography rig. And then because of their mix and match, you can get all of them at different times, upgrade them at different times. And so then that's why, yeah, Nick, the way that you've gotten your gear little by little and similar to me. But yeah, do you want to talk about how you got your gear?
Yeah, and it kind of shows how this hobby is a human connection again. There was a gentleman who was doing astrophotography locally here in the suburb of Philadelphia, and unfortunately he passed away. And his family was looking to sell some of his astrophotography items. And I just so happened to come across their list of things that they were selling for. And they were a wonderful family, and they really helped me get started in this field. So I really owe them a lot in helping me because they were able to help me affordably get into this hobby even more so. Because I would be years down the road from where I am now if it wasn't for their generosity of helping me get started. So I want to thank them a lot for helping me. A lot of what you see here behind me was from this hobbyist of astrophotography. So I kind of remember him every time I'm out imaging. of how I kind of have extended. I'm like an extension of the equipment that it's still being used and it's still being able to see the beauty of the night sky. So it really helped me
Mhm.
get equipment that was affordable for me, which I'm extremely thankful for.
Yeah, and honestly, I do. I think that is quite beautiful that his legacy is living on in being used by a new hobbyist.
Yeah.
His gear is now inspiring you to be looking up at the night sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I want to thank his family because like I said, without them, I would some of this stuff and I think one of the things we want to talk about, Brett, is cost effectiveness. You
Mhm.
know, some of this stuff is very expensive. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, so I guess talking about the different types of gear and being cost effective and how to get into this hobby, because you're right, it can get very expensive.
Yes.
So you do need to be crafty or thrifty when you're getting into this hobby. And so that's why for me, I uh I started by just getting a stock Canon DSLR with a telephoto lens, and I got a Skywatcher Star Adventure 2i mount. It's just a very entry level tracking mount, and that equipment lasted me for years. And what that also does is it helps you with those three main components, so just like the telephoto lens, a DSLR, a simple star tracker. That helps you understand the nuances of astrophotography and just, what each component is for. You learn how your optics are all about, the star sharpness. You start to learn about different focal lengths. You learn that your camera is really about the sensor, and so you're caring about the sensor noise. And I find it fascinating to learn more about the science and the technology behind pixels on a sensor and how it still blows my mind, and it feels like magic that, like, literally photons that are thousands of years old hit your camera
It's
sensor.
wild.
Yeah, the individual pixels on your camera sensor, and then convert that into digital bits that then show up in pixels on your computer screen. That whole process is amazing to think about. It's something that I definitely wanna dive into more. But so, yeah, that's a really cool thing. And then, yeah, the point of, like, the star tracker is to follow the night sky so that you can lock onto a target and take as long of an exposure as possible to get as much signal as possible. And as I because I have had my star adventure for the last 3 years or so, which has been great. I've gotten so much use out of it. But
You got
y
let's stop there.
y
You've gotten amazing
yes, thank you.
images
I
out of that. And I know when we were in Palm Springs, Brett,
Mhm,
and I was used to my go-to
yeah,
Skywatcher, and to watch you have to literally frame in everything manually
mhm,
was like opening to me because, Palm Springs was probably like a Bortle 7 there,
about
probably.
that,
Yeah, Bortle 6, and you could actually see objects in the sky, like Orion's belt and such. I have no idea how you were framing objects in with that mount on your rooftop in the middle of Chicago without being able to see any stars.
yeah. Well,
How
and
you were doing that, I have no idea.
I honestly, so I do want to explain that I would do star hopping, which is something that a lot of viewers probably and listeners probably have tried, but it builds character. That's the
Yeah,
only
I think
way
that's a
that
good
I
way
can
that's
put
a good
it.
way of putting it,
Yeah,
yeah.
because, yeah, with some of the targets, I think I'll say Rosette as, like, a really good example for star hopping. Rosette is one that's a nebula that you really can't see with the naked eye, and you cannot, for the most part, cannot see it in a subframe. Well, I'll clarify that. You cannot see it in, like, a 1-second subframe when you're just, like, kind of framing up on stuff.
Yeah.
You can see it in a 3 to 5 minute subframe, but yeah, so with the Rosette Nebula, in the star hopping realm, I would start on a star in Orion's belt because that would be easy to lock onto. I would just kind of like look through my viewfinder, be like, okay, cool. So I'm on that star now. And then what it is I'd have my Sky Guide app open on my phone, and I would move my mount and the RA and the declinations. I would move both of those steadily, little by little, take a subframe, look at my star map on my app, and see if the stars are lining up. Like, okay, I'm getting closer, closer. I would do like 10 or so, stages of that until I finally would see the like 6 or so stars in the star cluster at the center of Rosette. So that's how I would find objects before I had
And
go to.
meanwhile, I'd be sitting there being like, "Why isn't Brett text me back? What is he even
Yeah,
doing?"
because I'm taking a half an hour just to find the object that I wanna. Well, and oh my goodness, and it would be so frustrating when I would get lost. For instance, like, I would know that I, like, got too far. I'd be like, "These stars aren't like, I can't figure out where I am. I know I'm, like, way past where Rosette should be," and then I have to start over. I'd be like, "You know what? I can't find where I am. I'm gonna start over." So that would always be frustrating. One thing that I will say, if you're imaging something night overnight, so with Rosetta, and I forget what the exact combination was, but I did memorize from that star in Orion's belt how many turns I had to do, like in the RA and the declination to get to Rosette. So I would like do that, and then I'd almost always like lock onto it perfectly.
And I think Brett, I think this also just shows how fortunate I am to have had you as the person showing me this hobby when, I'm literally talking to somebody who was memorizing clicks on their mount to get to a
Mhm.
target, and to have access to your knowledge when I got into this has been very beneficial. And so I'm very fortunate for your expertise, because we want to sit here and talk about all this. You're really the expert. I'm still the what
The
would be the slow.
Apprentice.
Yes, I'm still the
Okay.
apprentice, because there's a lot of stuff that you were doing with that mount specifically that
Mhm.
is way out of my skill set that I currently have. So because I have a go-to, I mean, even my 8SE, I would just 3-star align it, and then it had a go-to.
Yeah.
So I was never that deep into the actual technicalities of
The
the
fundamentals of that.
fundamentals. Yeah, the fundamentals of that. And, I was thought I was doing enough myself by saying, "Oh, well, before I get the ASI Air, I want to learn how to do the framing myself," which I did. And then I was talking to a local friend here. His name is Steve. And he was like, "Get the ASI Air. Like, what are you doing?"
Mhm.
And I got it. And I don't know how I never not had it before.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the fact that you were doing all this stuff is just, to me, just like mind blowing.
Well, yeah, and like we said, it builds character, but then it just like, it helps you with the fundamentals in a way that then now that I have go-to, I appreciate it so much, but then also know what's happening in the background. Like, I was essentially manually plate solving as I was comparing my SkyGuide app to what was showing up on my camera screen. But now I understand what's happening with the go-to mount. It knows the exact calculation of going from one coordinate to the next, and it plate solves the image and adjusts and all that. So it's doing it all automatically. But then it's cool to think like, oh wow, that's what my mind was
That's
doing.
what your
Like,
brain was doing. You
yeah,
were literally doing that in your brain. Yeah.
exactly. But now I have a computer that's doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, okay. So I guess we're talking about gear. The first thing about an imaging session is to pick the target, obviously, that you want to look at for the night. And that will change depending on the time of year. And so and that's something that I didn't understand until I got
Me
into this hobby.
either.
Yeah.
I had no
There's
idea.
so many things that, yeah, as we dive into this hobby, we just didn't know about the night sky. And so the night sky changes throughout the year. It's about how we're looking at the galactic plane basically of the Milky Way. And so like right now we're in the season, as you said, of Orion. So all the nebula that are kind of like along that arm of the Milky Way. But now, as we head into springtime, specifically in the northern hemisphere, we're getting into galaxy season. And so now I know that that's galaxy season
Yeah, and
because
I had no idea
yeah,
about that.
and I did
I
I just learned that last year, and it's because we're no longer looking at the galactic plane, we're looking outside of it, so looking past, our galaxy to other
mhm,
galaxies. And then as we get into the summer, then that's Milky Way season, where we are looking at our galactic plane. So depending on where you are on Earth, like, you can actually see to the core of the Milky Way looking towards Sagittarius. But yeah, that's where, like, the really amazing that's where there's a lot of density, lots of stars,
yeah,
lots of nebula, lots of dust. It's just yeah, that's a beautiful part of
lots of
the sky.
beauty. That's a
Yes,
lots of beauty. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
I was telling somebody, I was like, "Oh, well, galaxy season's coming up." And they're like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. You don't know about galaxy
Yeah,
season? Like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um
Somebody will come into my office at work, and somehow we get on astrophotography and be like, "Oh, yeah, galaxy season's coming up soon." It's just like,
Mhm.
"Get out of here."
Yeah, yep. But yeah, so I guess, yeah, that's the first part, picking your target, which really does, yeah, depend on the time of year. And when I'm picking a target, I'll also kind of like optimize. So I will sometimes want to image 2 things in one night, because it might be as one target is setting and another's target is rising. So I
Mhm.
remember what target was it? Oh, yes, it was this. I was, imaging the Eagle Nebula and the California Nebula
Okay.
on the same night. So, yeah, I was starting on Eagle for a few hours, and then I'd
Which are both
switched to
amazing, by the way. Your captures of those, they're both
oh, thank
amazing.
you.
In
Yes,
fact,
yeah.
the California is right over your shoulder there.
Oh, yes, it is, yes. So, that I was getting, yeah, at the same time as the Eagle Nebula, 'cause
Mm.
I wanted to get it right as it was rising for the season.
Do you know that
And
it took an embarrassingly long amount of time for me to realize why it's called the California Nebula?
you did mention that to me, which actually that is a funny thing that there's so many I was about to say absurd, but they're not absurd names. They are fun, like, colloquial names
Well,
for
Brett, it's almost like a play on how we have constellations.
true.
You know, you look up at the night sky, we have these constellations. It's the same thing with these nebula. We're
Mhm.
looking at these objects that resemble something that makes sense to us. Like
Yeah.
that looks like the state of California. The North American nebula looks like the North American continent.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know, it's interesting how we took what we have with actual constellations and we kind of applied that to the same thing with a lot of these celestial objects.
It's completely true, and it's different across different cultures as well. So, like,
Correct. Yeah.
constellations are different in different cultures, and so that's actually a very cool thing as well
It is. Yeah.
because it is all of our all of our nomenclature is not a law of the universe. It's all humans making sense of it in whatever culture, we're part of, which is actually very cool. So it's like a connector of all humans across the planet.
And I think that's gonna be a theme for all our episodes
Yeah,
because we're in episode 2 and we're still talking about how this connects people.
yes,
And, so, I think it's just another example of that. Sorry, I
I
didn't mean to go on another tangent.
I agree. No, and thank you for mentioning that because I do 100% agree with that. Oh, and I was gonna say another nebula name that took me the longest time to see. It's honestly, it's absolutely hilarious once you see it, is the Wizard Nebula.
Ah, yes.
I
Yes.
wasn't until, like, everyone would call it that, and I was like, I don't see it. I don't really understand." And then, someone on I forget who it was, but someone on Instagram, like, posted an image where they, like, sketched what the wizard looked like, and it was, like, hilarious. It's like a wizard in a cloak with a tall hat, just, like, sitting, basically, and it was just, like, so goofy, like, I can't get that out of my head now. Um, but, yeah, so that's, like, the Wizard Nebula so it's just there are all these, like, fun, clever names
And
with
I think
everything
yeah,
in
and
the night sky.
I think one of the targets that you're doing right now is the Jellyfish Nebula, right?
Yes, it is.
And it looks like a jellyfish.
It does, and I had never heard of it, and yeah, I posted an Instagram story asking people for suggestions and got multiple suggestions, and yeah, jellyfish actually was, one that I had never thought of. So it's like it's
Yeah,
cool to that's another thing about bringing people together. It's yeah, we just the astrophotography community is so cool. The way that we all
it is.
communicate, help each other out.
And 2 years ago, I had no idea this community even existed.
Same, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, then with in imaging night, so yeah, we've talked about our planning, and then there's actually yeah, setting up the gear, which is obviously different. Like it goes to the same point about like the types of gear, depending on how automated your system is. Like for me, since I'm like much more automated than I was a few months ago, my setup is a breeze now, and it does happen
Mhm.
very quickly, but the fundamentals are still the same. So basically, when you're setting up, the main things that you have to do are polar line, focus, and frame on your target. So I would say those are the three main things, and depending on what your gear is, that depends on like how automated it will be. So basically, you witnessed in Palm Springs how I was just like me polar aligning my Star Adventure. I was just like crisscross applesauce sitting on the ground, hunched over.
Crisscross
Yeah,
applesauce.
exactly. Just like trying to find the North Star. Now, all I have to do with the AM3 mount is within Nina, there's just like a polar align tool. So I use that, and then it literally tells me how much to
Yeah.
adjust in different
That's how the
directions.
ASI error is too.
Yeah, yeah,
I just have to point it in the general direction,
yep,
and then it tells me how much to adjust.
exactly.
The ASI error, I think it allows you to be within 5.
Minutes or
Yeah,
yeah,
I
okay,
think so. I think it's either 4 or 5.
okay, got it.
And then I try to get as close as I still possibly can. One thing
Yeah.
is you don't realize how little that really is because one too much
Oh yeah,
adjustment and flies off
yeah,
and you have to like start all over again.
exactly.
And then one of the other things though that's made that your new mount and the ASI makes very easy is the framing of an object,
Oh yes.
which you would do next. And you know, this speaks volumes to how well the ASI is because I've had a lot of compliments on the framing of the Andromeda Galaxy that I have.
Mm,
And that was all the ASI Air. And I had nothing to do with that. That was all the software that framed that, and it framed it perfectly. So, I think it speaks volumes to people who are framing manually,
mhm.
um, of how incredibly hard that is to frame something manually. You know all about that, Brett.
I do, and, like, I'll say the stages of framing that I went through. Almost all of the imaging that I do is over multiple nights because I wanna get as much data as possible. And so night after night, when I was just doing star hopping and I didn't have the automated tools, I would memorize what stars were in the corners, and so that I would always arrive back at those, so that night after night, my
That's
frame
wild.
I know. And then
And
and that
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you one
yeah.
second, Brett. You know how I know you, like, were doing this manually?
Mhm.
I showed you a subframe of Rosette, and
Oh,
it was like a 10-second subframe,
mhm.
and I was like, "I don't know," and you're like, "Oh, no, no, that star there, and that star there, and that star there." You're like, "You're good. That's it."
Yeah, exactly, yep, yep.
Yeah. Just
Wait, that
and,
is
you
so
literally
true.
looked at it for 15 seconds. You're like, "Oh, nope, you're good."
Yeah, which is and that's so funny that I was just using Rosette as my star hopping example, so that's why I was
Yes.
able to tell you that
Yeah,
because
that's a perfect
I was
example.
like, "Oh, that's that star cluster, yep, you got it." But yeah, then my next phase of framing was when I got auto guiding. I still didn't have go-to, but with Nina, I would plate solve in real time. So even though I was not doing go to automatically get to a target, I at least had the plate solving in order to know what coordinates I was going for. So at that point, even though I was still manually moving to the target in real time, I could plate solve and make sure my coordinates were the same. But yeah, now with the go-to, it I've been so amazed that night after night, I just I just hit go to that target and it goes to the exact same coordinates. So like my subframes night after night now have just been completely aligned in ways that I have not experienced before. So that's been really cool. That goes to the point about how each piece of equipment has its own purpose in improving the
Mhm.
quality of your imaging. And so that's why I've liked the mix and match aspect of upgrading different pieces of gear at different times because you really start to understand what the purpose of each piece of equipment is. Like with I mean, what's a very succinct example? I guess with the auto guiding, for instance, that adding a guide camera was I think that was one of the biggest improvements in my imaging simply because of how much I could lengthen my exposure times, therefore increasing the amount of signal that I was getting for every subframe. That I mean, yeah, honestly, that because in I guess just to put auto guiding into layman's terms, basically it's that you have a guide cam that's locked onto a star and as your any mount will slightly drift over time. And so as your mount starts to drift, it will in real time send a signal just to send it back a little bit. So it makes it so that it unlocks longer exposure times.
And that's something I'm still having a hard time with.
Exactly. And we will make sure that you get that up and running because
Mhm.
it really is a game changer.
It really is. Because I had it working the one night, and I was able to take 3-minute frames of rosette,
Yeah.
and then I went out the other night, and the graph, it looked like it looked ridiculous. The graph
Yeah.
was all over the place, and I got frustrated and I left,
Yeah.
and it hasn't been clear since.
I know. Yeah. Well, and yeah, that's the thing because guiding, it all goes back to and I mean, yeah, we could get into a whole episode just on signal to noise ratio, but
Yeah.
like the goal of any imaging session is that you want to get as much signal as possible. And that requires increasing your exposure time. So that for each individual subframe, you're getting as much signal as possible. I guess the part that I wanted to talk about too is weather considerations. Because I think, especially me being in Chicago and having cold weather for like, and I mean, yeah, and you have cold weather too. Many of us experience a cold winter. Um,
I have to say, you're not special, Brett.
Exactly, yeah, I know. But so yeah, and actually tying this back to weather and the night sky, um, during the winter, that is also when the sky can typically be the most crisp. Like I
Yeah.
think there's less atmospheric turbulence, less humidity,
Mhm.
um, but your clear skies are less frequent. So it's like when you do have a clear sky. Oh, and actually, this is an interesting point. So it's all about trade-offs. Uh, Nighttime is longer in the winter.
Yep,
It's more clear in the winter,
yep.
like but only when it is clear. So,
Mhm.
like, when you don't actually have cloud cover.
And you are freezing your butt off.
Exactly, and then that is the aspect that gets incredibly difficult to manage. For me, I will be up on my roof, and I need to make sure that I'm bundled up. I do need to get better gloves because, yeah, my fingers will get basically, I'm lucky that I can be getting things set up on my roof and then run inside to warm up for a few minutes. You do
One
not have
one thing that was a game changer for me, because I can't do that.
yeah,
One thing that was a game changer for me is I bought gloves that work with my iPad.
that's good, yeah.
So I don't have to take my gloves off. The pads on the gloves still work with my iPad and my phone. So that really makes a big difference.
Yeah. I for some reason, I've not done that, so I just will, like, quickly take off my glove to, like, have
Yeah,
my thumb out, and then all of a sudden
it's
my thumb
worth
starts freezing.
it's worth it, Brett.
Yeah, I should.
It's worth it.
Um, I mean, we're both nerds with this. We both like to take care of our gear. We're both a little maybe we're both a little neurotic. Maybe that's fair to say. I don't know.
Oh, it's 100% fair
Okay.
to say. I am a
Okay.
neurotic person.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And so yes, so I am too, and I'm always worried about like my gear being taken care of and all of that. And so something that is really important in cold weather, you bringing so your equipment first of all works fine in cold weather, but only to the temperatures that are actually posted on your gear. I think with most of my gear it's something like -5 degrees Fahrenheit, but obviously yeah, you have to actually check what your gear is, but so basically pretty well below freezing. You can still be out there. Really the weakest link, I would say, is your cables, because cables can get brittle when they start to freeze, and so they can get brittle and break. So, like, that's the weakest link in a setup in cold weather, at least what I've
See, I didn't
experienced.
even know that, Brett. I didn't know that about the cables.
Yep. So it is important, like, once you get your gear out there, try not to move your cables a lot. Like, so make sure there's a good amount of
That's
slack.
interesting.
Don't
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, like, especially, yeah, if when you bring your cables in, don't, if they're kind of, hard and frozen, do not try to wrap them up or
Yeah,
anything. Yeah.
that
Because
makes that makes perfect sense,
exactly, yeah.
and I never knew that.
Yep. So PSA about, yeah, cables. They don't like the cold, so,
I don't either.
exactly. Yep. But then yeah, with your gear though, so like with your mount, your telescope, your camera, your ASI Air, or your mini PC, when you're bringing that gear inside, so all of that will operate fine in the cold, but then it's when you bring it inside that you can have an issue. People have probably experienced this before. You bring your gear inside and then all of a sudden it starts to condense or frost over, even though it's hot inside. And what is happening is that it's the humid, hot air is starting to condense on your gear, which on like a tripod or on the surface of some of the gear, like that's fine. But what you really want to be careful about is the internals, because that is what can happen. So, like in your camera and the mount, you don't want condensation happening on those, and you don't want stuff because that can cause corrosion over time. And it's like it's one of those things where like you won't notice it's an issue until it eventually becomes a failure
Becomes an
point.
issue.
Yeah, exactly. So what I do, and this is kind of a MacGyver aspect, but the key is that you don't want the hot, humid air to immediately touch your cold equipment. So while my gear is still outside in the morning when I'm bringing it in, I'll lightly put a towel over it, and that has a purpose that I'll explain. But then I'll put 2 trash bags over my gear, and so it looks ridiculous. It really does.
I'll tell you
But
what it looks like, Brett. I'll tell you what it looks like.
what does it
My
look like?
husband's a social worker for a living, so he takes a
Mhm.
lot of precautions for bed bugs. It
Oh,
looks
no.
like when he puts all his clothing into a trash bag and ties it
Mhm.
real tight when he gets home.
Yeah, okay, that makes total sense. Yeah, and that is I've taken some pictures with my gear and because I tie it at the bottom, but
Mm.
though it's not to protect against bed bugs, it's to protect against humid air. But yeah, so basically you wanna wrap up your gear while it's still outside, while it's still cold, and then you can bring it inside, and you wanna make sure that tie, like in my case, it's a trash bag, so it is this MacGyver hack, but basically, yeah, you want to make sure that it's tied at the bottom, and then you can bring your gear inside. So then what that will do is that once your gear is inside, it will prevent the hot, humid air from touching your gear. And so it makes it so that your gear is just dealing with a temperature change, not the humid air change. But then that's one reason why I put the towel inside. So just in case any air comes in, that towel will hopefully, take the whatever humid air instead of it reaching the internals of your gear. But so basically, yes, that is I'm neurotic and want to take good care of my
Yeah,
gear.
I would like for anyone watching to please leave in the comments if this is something that you do too
Mhm. Am I
in this
being
neurotic
overly cautious? Yeah.
yes, in this neurotic fashion.
Yes, exactly. But so yeah, that's one of the neurotic cold weather behaviors I have. Well, and then that takes us to the end of an imaging night because that's how I take my gear in.
And then this next part, Brett, this is like where you have 100% helped me, is when you're talking
Mhm.
about processing. So you got your
Yes.
image and now it's time to process it. And this is where you really helped me
Well, and
because this is one of the hardest parts, I think, of astrophotography is processing the data that you collected.
it it is, yeah.
And with calibrating, with stacking, with processing, all of it is just, to me, was very complicated.
And that's the thing. It's complicated. It is a huge learning curve getting into the hobby. And it's the point where and actually as we've seen and experienced is the point where a lot of people think astrophotography is AI or,
Yeah.
Photoshop or something. And it's
Yeah,
not.
and it's
It's
not.
yeah,
It's not. It's
it's
actually just bringing out the data that you captured.
exactly.
And, one of my most liked comments I've ever made,
Yeah,
Brett, was on one of your posts where I said, "I'll take not knowing anything about astrophotography for 500 for somebody who was saying that your image was just photoshopped AI."
yes.
And I find that very insulting,
Mhm.
especially because of all the work it takes to
Yeah,
get that image.
yeah.
And then to have someone just tell you that's AI it kind of makes my blood boil.
Exactly.
Um,
I completely agree. And it's one of those things where it's because it does take so much time. Any image,
mhm,
like you're saying, it's the time that it takes to plan, to do the imaging session, to then finally processing your image. Like it's hours upon hours upon hours that goes into every
yeah,
single image. And it's exactly as you succinctly said. It's us bringing out the data
mhm,
because that's what astrophotography is. It is photography, but it is data collection. And so yeah, when we're processing, there are there's also no one right way to process an image.
mhm.
It also can change depending on the type of target that you're processing. And it's one of those things where it's also, like I said, with there's no one right way. My processing workflow, for instance, has completely changed year over year, actually. As I learn new tools, as I learn more of the nuances about different aspects of processing. I guess, yeah, I mean, the main thing that I would say that's really important is like, first of all, calibration. So taking your calibration frames, so your dark frames, flat frames, bias frames, and making sure that you add those because that is what really helps to make your subframes clean. So you're getting rid of as much noise as possible, getting rid of vignetting and dust spots. We still need to work on your flat frames
I
and
know, yeah,
your dust spots, yeah.
yes, I know,
Yep, and once we get those figured out, that's gonna be a game changer because 'cause you're
I
not gonna
know.
have to manually, try to figure out how to get rid
If
of that.
only you didn't live 700 miles away.
I know. I'm sorry about that. Sorry about it. But yeah, then I guess with the processing, yeah, so there's the calibration aspect of it, the pre-processing of your images. Um, but then yeah, then there's the stacking. And so the stacking is really that that's the meat of what's happening when we say processing your images because the stacking is what improves your signal to noise ratio. And really, when we're talking about that, it's that each subframe, you're collecting the same signal, but then you're also collecting random noise. And so as you stack more and more subframes, you are subtracting out or with the different algorithms that are occurring you are essentially able to remove noise or lessen the noise and make it so that the signal is what is being brought out so you're never increasing signal but you're improving signal to noise that's I think that's a good nuance to talk about.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because people will ask me, "Well, Nick, if you're taking 60-second exposures, and you're taking the same 60-second exposures over and over and over and over, what are you even like? How are you improving the image? Because you're not increasing exposure
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And I think that explains it perfectly.
Exactly, yep. Because so it's and so that actually gets into also the nuance of exposure time versus integration time. So integration time is really the stacking of all of your images to improve that signal to noise ratio. But so really and that's what the goal is of, like, upgrading your equipment and everything. It's really trying to get to increasing your signal as much as you can within each subframe so that you have the best chance at then once you start to stack all of your images, you get all that integration time. It's to give yourself the best chance at improving your signal to noise ratio so that then as you get into the different processing techniques, you can bring out all of the data, all of the nebulosity, the just all of the beauty in your image. And so I typically with kind of my main targets that I really want to either print or showcase on my Instagram, I try to get up to 20 hours on those targets. I think the most I've ever gotten on a target was on Andromeda. I'm pretty sure I got like 30 plus hours on it. But yeah,
That's a lot.
really exactly, yeah. And it takes so much time and it really like trying to get, you know, 20 plus hours on a target can take weeks. So, but yeah, that's, you know, what it takes to try to improve that signal to noise ratio. And once you have good quality data, then that's just it gives you a leg up when you're then processing because really when you're getting into processing, once you have your stack, then you're really trying to stretch that data. So your stack is going to be linear data and you want to bring out that data by stretching essentially you know, you're visually stretching it, like in whatever user interface, whichever software you're using, but really what you're doing is on an individual pixel basis within all the bits of those pixels, you're trying to find that data within those bits, which I do find that conceptually very cool. And so that's what you're doing. You're stretching the data to bring it out and come up with this beautiful image of a galaxy or a nebula or a star cluster to then showcase to the world, show your friends and family, show people on Instagram or any other Astrobin, Pick Astro, all those different astrophotography communities. But okay, yeah. So I think that pretty much sums up our almost this astrophotography 101 episode. We just wanted to, after having talked about how we got into the hobby, we just wanted to talk about the nuances a little more about like what our imaging is like, what we, you know, what gear we use, how we use it, how we process
The
our
challenges I
the chal-
have.
the challenges we both have. It is not
Yes.
you're not singled out yet.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I think yeah, I hope you all have enjoyed hearing about that. Also, if we said anything incorrectly,
Yeah, please correct us.
please correct us.
I am not expert.
Neither of us are. We, you
Yeah,
know,
non-expert.
we are hobbyists just like everyone else, and we just want to talk about this hobby and start conversations about it. So yeah, with that,
There's a few things we wanna talk about yet. We want these segments to continue with all of our podcasts.
exactly, yes, these are recurring segments are what we're getting to. Yep.
So news, I don't know if everybody saw it. NASA did a test, a fuel test of the Artemis spaceship, space system, and there was a fuel leak. So now NASA is saying that the soonest that they could maybe have another launch date is in March. And so I know in our last episode we talked about Artemis maybe being launched now,
Yeah.
actually at the filming of this, but it's now going to be pushed back until at least March before they can fix the fuel leak that was taking place on the I think it was one of the boosters, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And then next is something that we're going to always be doing. Go ahead, Brett.
Yes. The next thing. So I did want to once again thank my brother Adam for doing the music for this podcast. Give him a follow at Oakbird Audio. on Instagram and as of filming this. So we are still waiting to see if you will notice this shout out. So we are now on episode 2. So the counter for has Adam noticed, our shout out is at 2. Okay, and now we're going to go on to the next segment, which is what are we imaging? So we're just going to quickly always say what both of us are imaging. So I guess, yeah, Nick, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm still in Rosette because
Yeah,
it's been cloudy and cold.
exactly. Which
So
honestly,
it's still Rosette. And honestly, it might be Rosette at the next episode
yeah,
too. So
exactly.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, for me, I actually just wrapped up Rosette. Sorry that I've had a few clear nights when you have
Blah
not.
blah blah blah
I know,
blah.
I know. And then yeah, I just started the jellyfish nebula,
Mhm.
which is a more advanced target than I've ever tried. So yeah, excited to see
Awesome.
how that turns out.
Awesome.
Okay, so yeah, so that's what we're both imaging. And if you're an astrophotographer and you want to be a guest, we'll always ask you what you're currently imaging.
Mhm.
You know, that this is we think a fun, a fun segment to enjoy with our guests as well. And then okay, yeah, now the next thing that we want to do is can I say something cosmic yet brave? It's always going to be us talking about something that, yeah, airing a grievance of some sort. Mine is not astrophotography related this time. Do you want me to go first?
Go ahead, Brett.
Okay, yes. So mine is taking it back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the episode with with all the missteps in my errands this morning. So I showed up to my haircut appointment this morning on the wrong day. So yeah, I thought my haircut appointment was at 9:45 a.m. on Saturday, but it turns out it was on Sunday, so tomorrow. And I will preface this by saying that I am 100% at fault. I know that. I know that I am the one that does not have the correct date. But what it is that I got my notification, my text notification yesterday confirming, will you be here February 8th at this time? But so here's what I'm going to say. The text message did not have a day of the week. It only said February 8th. I am not good at knowing what day of
How many devices do you have, Brett, that show you the date? I mean,
yeah,
even on your phone. I mean, look what pops up. The
exactly.
date.
I know the date automatically pops. I have it in the corner of my computer right now. It's
Yeah.
like I know it's everywhere. What I'm gonna say is cosmic yet brave. When you are saying the date of something, of an appointment, I would say it's useful to say the day of the week as well. But I know it is my fault. 100%. I know it's my fault. But okay, yeah. So Nick, what is your cosmic yet brave?
Yeah, I'll make mine about astrophotography
Mhm,
today. I think to me, what is frustrating sometimes is that when you get a new camera or a new mount or a new guide scope, the cables never seem to work out.
mhm.
They're either too long for your setup, they're either too short for your setup. And I know I've talked to other people about this. You always have to end up ordering brand new cables
Yep.
that fit your setup. And I wish there was like a one cable fits all type of situation, but that is not the case. And, that's my cosmic yet brave thing is the cables and the cable management drives me crazy.
Yes. And I think a lot of people will relate to
Mhm.
that because even
Yes.
yeah, and it's any number of things. Because yeah, you're talking about a cable being too short. In
Yeah.
my case, I had a cable that was too long, and
Hmm.
I think it was messing with the data transfer. So yeah, it's a very difficult thing
Hmm.
there's a sweet spot with
Yeah.
cable length and the way that you manage your cables. So yes, I agree. It can be
Yeah.
frustrating.
For sure. Yes.
Okay, so then let's see. Our next thing, yeah, we want to talk about we always want to talk about the nearest near Earth object. And so let's see. So yeah, as of filming, so February 7th, and I will say Saturday, February 7th,
Yeah.
not,
Saturday,
yeah,
February 7th.
exactly, not Sunday, February 8th, which I now know. So the nearest asteroid to Earth, as of today is February 7th is asteroid 2026 CC. We're looking at theskylive.com whenever we're doing this. And the cool thing about this that I wanted to note that I had yet just seen. So, well, I guess two things. So one, kind of where it is in the sky, and so this is showing that it is in the constellation Cassiopeia, so in that general direction. But then the cool thing is like the distance, because last time we noted the distance in kilometers. So the nearest thing, I think it was like 383,000 kilometers. But so this is 623,000 kilometers away from us. But then that in light travel time, which I found cool, is 2.079 seconds. So that's how many
Wow.
light seconds it is from us. Yeah.
Wow. It makes it
Mhm.
seem a lot closer.
It does. Yeah. Because I think, isn't it that the sun is 8 light
It's like
minutes?
8 minutes.
Yeah,
It's a little
exactly.
over 8 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So this is 2 light seconds away from us. Yeah.
Pretty
Mhm.
close.
Yep,
Hopefully it doesn't hit.
exactly. But yeah, so just always wanna make sure our listeners are in the know of what's flying around us.
Yeah, we wanna thank everyone for listening. I think
Mhm.
we're gonna start we have a cool idea for our next episode.
Mhm.
So, it's a cool idea, something near and dear to my heart.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so if you listened to the first episode, you may have an inkling of to what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
So stay tuned for our third episode. We're then going to start formalizing a process to have guests come on the show. So if you're interested, please reach out to us. We would love to start having guests on the show, and we want feedback. We
Yes.
want to make sure we're covering what our astrophotography community wants to hear about. So please, and also those who are joining us that don't do astrophotography, but you want to learn about astrophotography, please give us feedback of what topics that you want us to talk about or to explore, and we will be more than willing to do so.
Yes, exactly. In terms of guests, all astrophotographers welcome, but then also anyone from any topics of space and science and technology. Yeah, we wanna talk about a wide range of topics on this podcast. So
If you're a
definitely
meteorologist,
that
I would
too.
love to have you too, a meteorologist, please.
Exactly. So yeah,
So thank you, everyone. Really
yeah,
appreciate you listening. Brett, it's always a pleasure.
yes,
I
it
love
is.
hanging out with you on the weekends. So even
Likewise.
though we're 700 miles away, it's great to be able to hang out like this.
Exactly, it is. And so now cue the outro music from my brother.
Great. Bye, everyone.